What's the difference between Carney advising Trudeau and someone like Jenny Byrne?
Things are getting crazy. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Donald Trump playing the ultimate Uno reversal card, which has completely screwed the Liberals. Carney is screwed now. We've also got conservative Michael Barrett getting asked just the dumbest questions you can imagine. He absolutely humiliates these woke reporters. Let's jump into this. Starting off this one, we got Simieritsch here, new Angus Reid poll showing 40% conservatives, 37% for the Liberals, and they have this graph here that's animated. Once again, Carney's getting a bump. Is it this much? No, people don't switch this quickly when it comes to voting intention. An entire cabinet doesn't announce they're jumping off a sinking ship if polls like this are even remotely close to being effective of the real world. So this guy's referring to, you got Jennifer O'Connell. There's a whole bunch of them that have announced that are stepping down or they're not seeking re-election, etc. Riff Ferrani, a whole bunch of them. I don't believe these polls. I do believe that they probably have some gain here because of Trudeau stepping down, but it's not going to be this much. Got this one from Naya. She's sharing basically the decline here of happiness in Canada, and this is where Mark Carney came in as advisor for Trudeau, and then below age 30 is getting hit the hardest here, as you can see. Got this one here from Table Salt. It says the Canadian federal government is now spending $17.8 billion a year in outside contracts, all aboard the friends and family gravy train. Just blowing our money. This all needs to be accounted for. We need to hire an entire team to do a forensic audit and put people in jail for wasting our money. Now, getting into the situation with Donald Trump, first we got Mark Carney here, talking about America, basically just putting down America. Is this a smart move as the guy who's going to be taking over for Trudeau and then essentially would be negotiating with Trump? I don't think so.
We are, I look around this great room, we're all Canadians, but all different identities when we're all Canadians, and we celebrate that. America is a melting pot. In America, diversity is now an insult, and it soon will be a crime to promote it. That's not a line. That's a reality. That's what's happening in America.
This is fear-mongering, Carney, seriously.
It's a shame. Maybe they'll snap out of it eventually, but that's what they are now.
What's going on is basic institutions are falling apart by having mandates like DEI for air traffic controllers. That's ridiculous. It should just be whoever the best person is for that job, especially an air traffic controller or any other job. Who's spreading misinformation, disinformation, or just lying now? Carney's term as governor of the Bank of England saw the UK expand its business with China. Same will happen to Canada should he be elected. Let's not. So this brings us to Donald Trump here dropping this bombshell today. It says, on trade, I have decided for the purposes of fairness, I will charge a reciprocal tariff, meaning whatever countries charge the United States of America, we will charge them. No more, no less. That seems fair, right? Interesting, right? We'll dig into this here, but for purposes of United States policy, we'll consider countries that use the VAT system, which is far more punitive than a tariff, to be similar to that of a tariff, sending merchandise, product, or anything other named through another country for purposes of unfairly harming America. So he goes on to say that U.S. has been treated unfairly by other countries, both friend and foe. The system will immediately bring fairness and prosperity back into the previously complex and unfair system of trade. This is a big Uno reversal here on the Liberal Party. And this will be difficult for Canada in different ways. I think Poilievre will be able to negotiate or deal with this on much better terms, though, with Donald Trump, both being parties on the right, same policies, no woke DEI stuff. Because you got to remember, Donald Trump here, one of his biggest worries, his biggest agendas here is to protect America. That's where they're looking at Greenland, the Panama Canal, all of this stuff. And Canada is a big liability. All the money laundering comes in. The Mexican cartels are flooding all of the street fentanyl, all the street candy into America using rail cars and the ships, where Canada doesn't scan all that stuff. Precursors brought in by China. We become a liability to America, and they need us to pull our weight here defense-wise. So Trump wants Poilievre to get in power. If we just take a quick look here, Brian Riley just did an interview with Steve Bannon, Trump's former White House chief strategist. So if America controls the Panama Canal right down here, then basically they control the flow going in through the south. And if Canada gets our stuff together and controls this new shipping lanes that are going through the north up here, basically doesn't allow China to easily get their stuff onto the other side of the world. And if they're pushing these precursor ingredients and doing other nefarious things, it gives them more control, which is why they want Greenland here, because it's positioned right across from Russia. But we need to be pulling our weight. Now, regarding the tariffs, let's take a deeper look at this. So this guy's post has been going around here saying, just to be clear, these are the tariffs Canada imposes on the US for years, even before Trump made his first mandate. So dairy, 270%, cheese, 245, etc. Now, this is true, but it's not totally accurate. So let's just break this down a bit. So for example, if we look at milk, 270% tariff, this is the official Canada tariff finder here. So what you can do is put in the country. So this means products coming from America going into, importing into Canada. And you can type whatever you want in here. So we type in milk. It brings it up here. So we'll go other because we don't want dried milk. And we'll go 1 to 6%. So it's normal milk. And if we click here, we open this up. So there's two categories within access commitment and over access commitment. So how Canada works here, if you look at this, there's two numbers here. You see UST and free. This is the United States tariff, which is free. It's a free trade agreement with US. So it's not 270, but we'll get to that. This MFN is most favored nation. So countries part of the World Trade Organization will get this rate here, 7.5%, which is not America. But this is within access commitments. This is the supply trade agreement that Canada has with the US. They can only supply so much milk before then they go to this one, which is the over access commitment, which then is 241%. These numbers fluctuate based on how much milk is brought in. So I'm not exactly sure. I think this 270 would be an average that this guy put up, but we take a look at another one, say here, cheese, 245%. We'll go with fresh cheese. So same thing here with the access commitment. We're going to not do cream cheese. We'll do normal. So this one gives $3.32 per kilogram of tariff for the other nations. But America, though, it's free. But if you go over access, America imports too much cheese, and it's 245.5%. So I went through and started making a list here. And you can see here, say, turkey sausages. With America, it's 0% up until that supply agreement. Then it's 154. Chicken sausage, 0, and then 238. Milk, as you just saw there, 241. Eggs is 0, but then goes up to 163. Cheese, it's at 1.33%. I did some math because it was like a certain amount of cents per kilogram, and then goes up to 245. And butter, 0%, and then goes up to almost 300%. So we could go through the full list here. You can see this list here. I haven't verified all of these, but most of these numbers, at least that I've checked, are the oversupply agreement. And that's what it comes down to. This is going to be where the negotiating is. If we look what the highest ones are, it's all dairy. Now, the federal government is the one who sets these tariffs, but Quebec very heavily pushes to have those tariffs in place. And they are basically kind of calling the shots, because if the government removes those tariffs, they'll lose support in Quebec. But Pierre Poilievre doesn't need all that much support in Quebec. Poilievre's getting his votes and his seats outside of Quebec. Quebec is that battleground where the Conservatives hope to win. They're not putting all their eggs in that basket, unlike the Liberals who need that support, which is why Mark Carney unofficially made Francois Philippe Champagne his deputy prime minister. He needed that Quebec support, that Quebec vote, and bringing in a guy like Francois would help him do that. So Mark Carney can't go and say, I'm going to cut these tariffs as a negotiating tool with Trump. He's stuck. There's nothing he can do with that. But I don't think the same applies for Pierre Poilievre. Not to mention, Pierre Poilievre's going to be negotiating on the same right-wing side of the political spectrum. There'll just be that much more in common, where Trump will have respect for Pierre Poilievre. Donald Trump does not respect the Liberals, Justin Trudeau, because all the money laundering, the corruption, the scandals, the street fentanyl, the connections to China, the national security risk that Justin Trudeau, the Liberals, and Mark Carney bring to Donald Trump and America. So there will be some pain felt with this and the tariffs and all this, but this really screws over Mark Carney and the Liberals. Like, they just can't push back and cut those tariffs without losing a ton of support in Quebec where they need it. Talking on this more, we got Mario. This guy's got great takes. He's talking about this, though, on the perspective of the digital service tax that Justin Trudeau brought in, which basically just increased prices of, say, Netflix and those kind of streaming services on Canadians. Americans hate this tax, and they'll be retaliating.
In almost all cases, they're charging us vastly more than we charge them, but those days are over.
This is bad for the world, but very good for the U.S. Donald Trump just signed retaliatory tariffs against all countries who impose tariffs against the U.S. For example, Canada is charging a DST, a digital service tax. And I knew it was going to be a horrible idea because that tax is inflationary for the end consumer, which is you and I. So ultimately, even though companies like Netflix will be charged this tax, that tax gets passed down to us. They're not just going to eat that cost. Again, more tax for Canadian citizens. It came into law in 2024, but the Liberal government, in all their wisdom, said that even though it's going to be effective in 2024, it's going to apply retroactively 2 years before to back to January 1st, 2022.
That should be illegal to apply taxes that are retroactive. Like, what kind of stupid draconian thing is that?
Now, 3 weeks ago, the Financial Post warned against this, that Canadian businesses operating in the U.S. could pay a heavy price for the digital service tax. There's a clause, Section 891 of the U.S. IRS Code, which allows Trump to double corporate taxes on Canadian companies operating in the United States. For example, Shopify. Trump signed an order on Monday asking the Treasury to investigate whether any foreign country subjects U.S. citizens or corporations to discriminatory or extraterritorial taxes. And when the president finds such discrimination, the tax rates should be doubled in case of each citizen and corporation of such foreign country. Trump is asking for the officials to deliver and report a memo on these discriminatory taxes by April 1st. And again, they're going to find it because Canada's controversial digital service tax came into effect last year. It's a 3% tax against anyone who exceeds $20 million in revenue. While this DST affects other countries as well, there was a lot of pushback, including from the Biden administration. In short, the Liberals set us up to be royally screwed, and it's going to hurt some of Canada's biggest companies who now risk having their taxes doubled because Trudeau and the Liberal government voted in this digital service tax. That is a massive Achilles heel that we need to completely scrap. Remember, people, you cannot tax a country into success.
So we're going to feel some pain with this, but Mark Carney can't get away from this. Donald Trump, after having his meeting with India and seeing all the tariffs, maybe it was to other countries as well, but has come up with this plan. Canada just needs to reciprocate not having so many tariffs on them. And the dairy sector is the biggest one. What this is also going to do in the eyes of Canada here is Trump is going to be less of the bad guy that's attacking Canada, and then Canada will be the one who has tariffs on America, where, you know, like mostly with dairy and other stuff. So this really is a big Uno reversal here, and the Liberals can't get around this one, not without losing a lot of their base. So we take a look at the map here on Polywave. I mean, you can see where Pierre Poilievre's votes are coming from here. It's basically everywhere except for Quebec. Even Quebec, though, look at this second place here in this big riding here, Quebec. If we move down here, so like, you know, Poilievre's in second or third place, fourth place for some of these ridings. Like, this is not where he's going to win his seats. We are seeing actually some seats flipping, though, which is interesting. Historically, though, this bottom sector here has been conservative in Quebec because these people who live in these rural areas do so much trade with America. So I'm not sure if this is a plan that Donald Trump and his team came up with that would not only work for America, but also help us get rid of the Liberal government, because they don't like the Liberal government. There's numerous different officials have come out and said that, as well as Donald Trump himself. And maybe they realized that they were pushing too hard, that it is flaring up all this patriotism here, that the Liberals were using Donald Trump as the scary guy to rally around and gaining support, and now they're doing this Uno reversal here. The Liberals are screwed. If we take a look at this post here, now that we've got Black Hawk helicopters going around the border, they're starting to pick up people. This video points out that 6 migrants were trying to sneak across the Manitoba border. Just imagine if we had scanners scanning sea containers in the port of Vancouver, what we'd find. Meanwhile, we've got Captain Cpac declaring his love for Ukraine, despite this rough situation we've got here in Canada.
He will be with you every step of the way until victory. Slava Ukraini!
Where's his speech about Canada? He's not giving a speech about Canada, how much he loves Canada, how much he wants to save Canada, protect Canada, do what's best for Canada. He doesn't care about Canada. He's used us. He's absolutely fleeced this country. Hardworking Canadians who pay for everything. He's just absolutely milked us dry. Then he goes on stage here and proclaims his love to support Ukraine. This guy's not patriotic about our country. He's been an absolute disgrace. You guys got to check out this video. So Michael Barrett comes out here and starts talking about how carbon tax Carney potentially has conflicts of interest, most likely, but he won't talk about what those are until he becomes prime minister. That's what he said in the Rosemary Barton's interview there in CBC. After he's prime minister, or at least he's won the Liberal leadership race, hence become prime minister, he'll let us know how he's tied through Brookfield, through Stripe, through other companies into the Liberal government, etc. Just listen to these woke loser reporters dogpile onto Michael Barrett, trying their best to lift up their new king, Mark Carney. Michael Barrett isn't having it, just absolutely humiliates them.
Carbon tax Carney must come clean with Canadians about potential conflicts of interest and all of his business dealings. Carbon tax Carney, having been a senior advisor appointed by Justin Trudeau to advise him, but done in such a way to shield him from all of the standard and customary accountability. Justin Trudeau gave Mark Carney all of the power and none of the accountability that comes with it. You look at some of the positions that we know Carbon Tax Carney held at the same time, some of the decisions the Trudeau Liberals took. For example, Trudeau Liberals changed mortgage rules in such a way to that would benefit the bottom lines, pad the pockets of mortgage companies, private mortgage insurers, like the one owned by the company Mr. Carney represents at the same time he was sitting in the Prime Minister's office. While Mr. Carney was chairman of the board at Stripe, Stripe was shielded from the government while they were gouging Canadians. This is the same problem we have with Brookfield trying to enter into a pension scheme with the Canadian government worth $10 billion to Canadians while Mark Carney was sitting in the Prime Minister's office. The customary and normal accountability practices have been completely disregarded by Mark.
So something to note there about that pension one. Rosemary Barton asked him about that, and he said he didn't have anything to do with that deal. I call bull crap.
Carney. Now, he has claimed that he will make disclosures should he be successful in an election. What that means is he could get through the Liberal leadership and through a general election, and it'd be an additional 4 months before those disclosures were completed.
So even if he makes a deal with Jagmeet and gets through the throne speech, he could be almost all the way until October election before anyone even know who this guy was.
And while he says that he will make these disclosures later, we know that he can't be trusted. Take, for example, this past weekend. Carbon Tax Carney says in French, while in Quebec, that an east-west pipeline would never be completed. But a week ago, speaking in English, while in British Columbia, he said that he would use emergency powers to push through significant projects of a national interest.
So that came from Castnet when he was doing his event in Kelowna. The other one was an event he spoke in French. He did an interview, and he said specifically he wouldn't do a project across Quebec. He's playing to both the sides. He's lying. He's he's lying to one side or the other.
So is it Mark Carney that needs to change, or is it the rules? And if so, if it's the rules that need to change here, what would a Conservative government do to change these ethics rules?
Well, first of all, we're in a position where Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberals have shut down Parliament. So we have no opportunity to use any of the accountability tools that are usually available to us, including committee. We have no ability to change the rules or change the laws because
I can't believe she asked that question. Is it Mark Carney that needs to change or the rules? That's beside the point. The point is we shouldn't have someone influencing the Prime Minister who benefits financially from it and then becomes Prime Minister to further benefit from it.
They've locked parliamentarians out of the House of Commons, and so we're left to deal with these rules. But they're insufficient because Mark Carney has been given the privileged role of serving as a senior advisor to the Prime Minister while they avoided the normal disclosure process. So we arrive at this place only because Justin Trudeau shielded Mark Carney from the usual accountability practice. To be clear, the rules weren't designed for a situation like this and would need to be updated to reflect the reality that we find ourselves in. I don't believe that the architects of these rules could have imagined the lengths that Liberals would go to break the law as it had been and avoid the law as it had been created.
Yeah, basically mic drop there. I mean, the architects, as he said, of the law did not anticipate this level of corruption.
What you're saying basically is that Mark Carney is not breaking any rules right now. Is that what you're saying?
It's absolutely unacceptable that we have someone who was allowed by Justin Trudeau, a serial ethical lawbreaker, a prime minister.
What rule is he breaking? Can you explain to us what rule he's breaking right now?
Are you kidding me? This guy, this reporter saying this, what rule is he breaking? Our beloved King Mark Carney did not break no rule.
Minister twice found guilty of breaking Canada's ethics laws.
Mark Carney, what rule has he broken?
A prime minister who's twice found guilty of breaking Canada's ethics laws created a path for Mark Carney to sit in the prime minister's office and to advise him, all the while he was making decisions that enriched himself and enriched his company.
Michael Barrett here didn't even mention the Telesat Lightspeed deal. Mark Carney's buddy at Telesat got that deal worth billions of dollars, and Champagne is the first one to argue, oh, it's good for this. We need our own satellites. We will not take lessons from the conservatives. But when you dig into the deal, they get that loan for multiple years, I believe it's 3 years, interest-free, like $2 billion. I would love to have a $2 billion loan interest-free. Who wouldn't? You could stick it into a basic GIC, any account, and you would be stinking rich afterwards. You'd make hundreds of millions of dollars. It's for free. You can give back the money afterwards and just be rich. That's essentially the deal they gave Telesat. This company hasn't even delivered a single satellite. This is the problem we have in our country. We have real politicians here standing up for Canada, and then we have stupid woke reporters trying to prop up these corrupt, dirty politicians who don't have Canada's best interest at heart.
Transparency is required for Canadians. The rules as they exist today they don't go far enough to ensure that we have transparency. We've seen after 9 years of Justin Trudeau that the rules and the penalties as they exist aren't sufficient to deal with a Liberal government who is content to break the rules as they're written and to avoid the law wherever possible.
I'd like to ask you, those level of corruption, like if you're breaking the rules and there's hundreds of millions of dollars that get misused, where it gets funneled into companies that shouldn't have been, etc., it should just be 100 years in jail, like, period. Because I would stop it. No prime minister or minister would risk it. If it was 100 years in jail, they're not going to mess around with that. Clearly, we can't charge prime ministers for committing crimes in this country.
About outsourcing, you've been on the committee hearings that have looked into these trends. The government has pledged in budgets to save money in this area, to cut back, and now public accounts show that, in fact, it's a new high, nearly $18 billion in outsourcing last year. What do you make of that?
We've seen under the Carney-Trudeau Liberals a doubling of the more than doubling of the use of these outside consultants. And after Conservatives uncovered the gross waste and the insider dealings that has led to criminal investigations and charges being laid against some of these contractors, while the Trudeau Liberals had said that there was nothing to see here and nothing to worry about, including with the $60 million Arrive scam, committed to Canadians that they would reduce and scale back the outsourcing that they were using for these type of consultants. I think they even spent tens of millions of dollars looking to have an analysis done by an outside consultant on how to spend less on consultants.
That is true. They did a study wasting money on how to reduce money on consultants. Yeah, I've got it right here. It's this one. Ottawa paid nearly $670,000 for KPMG's advice on cutting consultant costs. Just like absolutely disgraceful.
Do you think unelected party advisors and unelected candidates should be subject to the same disclosure rules as candidates? What's the difference between Carney advising Trudeau and someone like Jenny Byrne advising your party's lead?
Okay, I'm happy to explain to you the difference between someone sitting in the Prime Minister's office and someone not sitting in the Prime Minister's office. So Mark,
that guy walked into that one, didn't he? So yeah, Jenny Byrne is not advising Justin Trudeau, not on the chair of multiple big corporations that are benefiting financially. She's an advisor to Pierre Poilievre, the official opposition, who is not in control of the government.
Mark Carney, who was sitting in the Prime Minister's office, was an advisor to Justin Trudeau, and at the same time that he was an advisor to Justin Trudeau, I listed, while you wandered off, I listed a number of examples of how his company benefited from decisions that the government that he was advising was taking, all the while he wasn't being subjected to the standard disclosure rules that exist for someone who's advising the Prime Minister. Now,
yeah, like Jenny Byrne is not running to be Prime Minister. Like, what a dumb question.
Oh, it's easy for Canadians to see why that conflict is something that we need to have rules to prevent, and the rules that existed, they went to great pains to avoid, including at committee, days and days across multiple committees of Liberals filibustering to ensure that Mark Carney, in his role as an advisor to the Prime Minister, who was not being subjected, who was being shielded from Canada's ethics laws, they also shielded him from coming to a parliamentary committee. It's absolutely unacceptable that they've teed this up to have him avoid the standard and customary disclosures, the transparency that Canadians expect and deserve from someone who says one thing and does another. Canadians simply cannot believe what Mark Carney has said. So we need these disclosures so Canadians can get the full picture about the conflicts of interest and potential conflicts of interest that Mark Carney has. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the questions. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Ooh, checkmate. Just Michael Barrett dropping the hammer on these woke reporters. What dumb questions. So there we have it. Interesting times. Donald Trump flipping things around here. How will Mark Carney respond? I suspect he'll double down on how bad Trump is and how bad things are going in America. And they're going down the wrong path. He'll take Canadians back up the right path and just keep fear mongering how Trump is evil and all of this in America and what they're doing with the DEI policies in America is evil and exposing the corruption is evil. Who knows? With all this going on, I feel like this bumpy ride, it's not over.